listeners, you're watching News 24 Live. I'm joined in studio by Dr. Mark Scher. He's a dentist that practices in Sea Point. Today we're going to be speaking about the relationship between diabetes and oral hygiene. Hello.
Hi Jennifer.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I never actually put diabetes and oral hygiene together. I wouldn't think there is a relationship. Why don't you start off by explaining how the two coincide?
Sure. Look, I think say diabetes and dentistry have a relationship, not specifically oral hygiene. We'll get to that part because maintaining good oral hygiene is really important if you've been diagnosed as a diabetic. But certainly as a dental professional, we're trained to manage and treat diabetics in a specific way. So if you suffer, if you're prone to diabetes, there are definitely certain managements that we need to take into account. Really looking at how that diabetic patient is controlled. In other words, if they're on insulin, that's your first type of diabetic, your patient that needs to have insulin. Mm-hmm. So we've got to make sure that they're taking the insulin at the scheduled time, and we don't, as dentists, interfere with that with that intake, because if we have a long procedure and the patient misses the insulin intake, they can slip into what we call a diabetic coma. So that's something we always keep in check. The second type of diabetic patient or diabetic person, should I say, is the person that develops diabetes later on in life. And those are the ones which we can speak about, because they're the ones that are a lot harder to manage, mostly because they actually don't even know they're diabetic. Okay. And it's always the case that they develop diabetes because they've kind of let their diet go. They eat what they want. Their blood sugar is out of control. They're overweight. And that always plays into the oral cavity, because we see people with a high sugar diet who really don't look after themselves. It tends to show very clearly in the mouth. So we have to manage their oral conditions, as well as probably inform them that they actually are a diabetic patient. They might not even know that. So there's certain times where we have to really inform the patient to have their blood sugars checked, because we see that there's things happening in the mouth that don't quite add up. So yeah, there is a very close relationship between the oral cavity and diabetes.
What are some of the oral conditions that someone with type 2 diabetes might be more prone to?
Look, I'd say your type 2 diabetic patient is going to definitely suffer from a type of gum or periodontal disease. Mainly if they, as I said, uncontrolled, they don't know they're diabetic. So there'll be a lot of plaque. And basically, if we look at gum disease, and we'll just talk about that quickly. Gum disease there's two types. There's the disease of the gum, which is just the part you see. And that leads to bleeding, swollen gums, and it's really can be quite unpleasant, but it's just contained in the gum, and it's very easy to fix. You just have a cleaning, you go home and you floss all the time, and you brush twice a day, and that actually subsides. When that condition is left untreated, it spreads to the surrounding structures, and mainly the bone underneath the gum. And that's what we call periodontal disease. Now, periodontal disease is aggressive.
Sounds serious.
Yeah, it is serious, and it's very difficult to treat. It's very difficult to manage. It really becomes a lifetime of management if you've been diagnosed with periodontal disease. So we see in diabetic patients that if they have, or if they're prone to periodontal disease, it will be accentuated. It will progress quite rapidly. So we've got to put them on a really strict oral hygiene routine, where they're coming in at least every 3 months, maybe even every 2 months, for a cleaning, and we give them strict instructions to follow at home. So we look out for that. That's a main issue in diabetic patients, the gum disease. Another condition is something called candidiasis, which is a fungal infection. Unfortunately, if you're diabetic, you actually have an immunodeficiency. Your immune system isn't functioning at full capacity, so you do get prone to developing oral conditions, and candidiasis is one of them. What happens is, if you start taking a lot of what we call hypoglycemic drugs, which they control your blood sugar basically, they can cause reactions in your mouth. They can cause ulcers. They can cause are all what we call lichenoid reactions, which can be quite uncomfortable. It's painful. I don't know if you've ever had a mouth ulcer. It sucks, so you don't want to develop those. So if you do suffer from diabetes, your immune system is always compromised, and you really got to up your game to try and manage that. So yeah, those are the things we look out for.